If you would have asked me before shooting this short film what the most challenging component would be, I probably would have said something like having to wake up at 4 a.m. to start shooting at 6, or having 20 people in our 2-bedroom apartment for 3 straight days. Little did I know that it would end up being a lot more obvious than that. The most challenging part of this film, taking all of the plans and ideas that existed across 4 different people's brains and putting them together in a way that 15 other people could understand and contribute to on a moment's notice. And when I say ideas, I mean the script, the storyboard, shot list, cast and crew, the locations, wardrobe, logistics, budget, everything. So how did we accomplish all of this? Well, Milano. Today I want to take you guys on a deep dive into how we produced this short film. All of the pre-production steps, the inspiration and references, and even an inside look at the post-production process as well. As I touched on briefly a couple months back in the behind the scenes video we put out for this short film, if you haven't seen that, go check it out. This wasn't my story. It wasn't my characters or script. This concept was thought up and eventually written by 2 of my good friends, Brett Blackwell and Melissa Goodwin.
So Melly and I are going to create a bit of a short piece on dating in LA.
One night they dived into just how awkward and sometimes difficult dating in Los Angeles as kind of a young adult can be. Truly, like the good, the bad, the ugly. Brett and I had chatted on and off for quite some time about shooting a short film, and this was one of his ideas. It wasn't until some things started to align, my schedule and his schedule kind of cleared up. My wife and I decided, why not jump into this film and actually produce this thing proper? We began having these kind of weekly pre-pro meetings and began trying to visualize what this whole film will look like. Brett and Melissa wrote the script and handled the casting, and Kylie and I began working on everything production and camera related. We very quickly realized that organizing all of these ideas, it was practically impossible without it existing in one fully fleshed out location. Like text messages and notes lists just got so overwhelming to deal with. We needed something that all 4 of us could begin building upon to actually get this thing moving. This was, of course, especially important for my wife, Kylie, as she was going to be the producer. So this is where Milano comes in. You've never been on camera in any of my videos before. You guys have seen her in plenty of my videos, but this is my wife, Kylie, and she was the producer for this film, but many of my other projects, we've worked very closely over the last 2 years on my YouTube videos, as well as a lot of my freelance work. I've done these pre-production boards for some of my bigger sponsored YouTube videos. I've done it for a variety of my commercial productions, documentary films that I've worked on, plus even my personal life, and really anything that I just need a little more structure and organization for. What I love so much about it is it's very visual. I think a lot of people traditionally use, Google Sheets or Docs or slides even to work on project management and pre-production, but this kind of combines all of the best elements of those platforms into one. Here it is. This is our carousel pre-production Milano board that we put together for this entire project. I can't take credit for it because this is mostly Kylie's doing. She's kind of been the Milano wizard for a lot of our projects that we've worked on. She has particular little color palettes and everything. I mean, of course, you gotta make it look pretty. But yeah, maybe walk us through a little bit kind of what we have going on here.
I mean, if you're wondering why I laid everything out in this particular way, I don't have an answer for you. I just liked the way that it felt. I liked the way that it looked. I wanted each department to have its own designated area. It's really important for me as producer and Ryan as, DP.
So, I mean, up in the top, we have just a quick kind of like about the film. It's got a little synopsis, some details like our ideal runtime, a few look and feel references. Right underneath that, we can kind of just begin moving into like all the people involved. So we've got the cast, everybody's laid out here. They've got their picture with them, which is just a great quick visual reference.
We have have the production team, camera department, grip and electric, and so on. Under each of these individuals' names, we have their contact information. That way, if it's needed, we can access that information. As far as story goes, we really did dive into our shot inspiration, and obviously there is the treatment that the director Brett put together. I'm sure we've all seen different variations of, treatments for projects and films, short films, commercials, whatever it may be.
And then we've got a column for kind of all of the filming, production related info. So of course, call sheets, which were put together before each shoot day. So of course, this has everybody's contact information, call times, when and where we're shooting. We've got our shot list and schedule, which definitely could have been better. I think this was maybe some of the root of our problems and why we ended up needing pickup days is I don't think we thought through some of our shot lists as good as we could have, but more on that later. We've got a little gear checklist. I kind of just referenced this going into each day to make sure I wasn't forgetting something. And then we've got locations. So a handful of reference photos as well as the addresses for each of our filming locations. I mean, this board as a whole kind of just acts as a very simple, easy to read master view on a whim. It's a great feeling to know that if I share this link with anybody, that it's pretty self-explanatory. They should be able to click into it, open up and start reading through and really begin wrapping their head around, how and what we're filming. Let's go ahead and dive into the thing I think a lot of people have been very curious about, the budget. So now here in the budget page, you can see we have some tables, kind of look similar to some Excel sheets. I think this is actually a new feature that Milanote just added in, so we're very happy. Great for keeping track of numbers. How much did this entire film cost? Well, $10,606.97. I don't think that that's perfectly accurate. I think there's a few kind of small miscellaneous expenses that we decided to add in last minute that didn't make it into the sheet. But yeah, it's no small amount of money for a little passion short film with a group of friends. How did we fund this? Well, as I mentioned previously, Small Rig, who was our sponsor for the behind the scenes video that I did a couple of months back, we kind of decided, instead of just pocketing that money on a simple sponsored video I could do for anything, why not get a group of friends together, and actually execute on this short film idea and, create something that could live in my portfolio and kind of refresh my body of work with some new cinematography.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Lauren.
While I can't obviously disclose the exact amount that they paid me, I can definitely say it wasn't enough to cover the entire budget. So myself and the director put in a good portion of our own money to bring this thing together. Now, when it came to sourcing the crew for this, definitely leaned into our friends and our kind of creative network in order to make all of this happen. I think it's important to note that the numbers that you're gonna see here are not what I would consider normal industry rates. We had a lot of people either help out for free or a heavily discounted rate. So please don't look at these numbers and then go out and assume okay, cool, that's how much a first AC costs. When working on projects with friends, it's important to always consider the value that your project will bring them. Maybe it's something that they need the experience or they want the film credit for. So they're totally willing to help out. Make sure that you're always providing some amount of mutual value to them before just going out and saying, hey, I've only got $100 for this rate. Do you want to jump on? Since we have the producer here, let's dive into a bit more of how we ended up spending that budget.
So what you're looking at here is the total number for each of these crew roles. We had originally slated for 3 production shoot days and ended up needing an extra 2 pickup shoot days.
Yeah, so in essence, these are the total numbers for 5 shoot days. Some of these roles we only needed for a day or so. For instance, the makeup artist, gaffer, we have at $22.50. Sound mixer, $2,400. Our makeup artist for that one day, $670. Our first and second ACs, $450 each. Equipment, that's the area that I probably spent a little more money than I should have, but I wanted to invest into the look. So lenses, I spent a little over $1,200 for all of those shoot days. I got a great discount as well from a rental house. Our grip package, we got from a friend, great rate as well, $500. Lights, plus our haze machine. I'm fortunate in the sense that I have a lot of lights that I personally own, so that saved us a ton of money. That number could have easily easily probably been close to triple. And then a couple other miscellaneous things like a lens adapter for those cinema lenses, as well as gear insurance. And then we have our one location fee that we had to cover.
We had no room in our budget for location. I mean, it was already apparent to us that we were gonna need to use our own 2-bedroom apartment space, as well as some of the, community spaces within our complex, just to kind of makeshift a cocktail bar and a coffee shop. We had an actor that was able to donate a full day at his family's restaurant for us to use as a makeshift Italian restaurant and a trendy taco spot. We still were in need of one primary location for this shoot. So I reached out just via Facebook, just some local community pages, connected with a few restaurant owners, and one was willing to let us use her back patio as a shooting space for, a fairly small fee.
We had originally thought we were going to need a variety of peer space locations for all of these scenes. I mean, there's so many of these bad dates that we tried to do. And yeah, if we had to pay for each location, that alone probably would have costed us at least a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, easily. One other important aspect to touch on, of course, is, how to sell each of these locations. So, props, set design. At this point in the pre-production process, no one had bandwidth to, take on this really crucial role. So I took it upon myself and I just kind of hoped for the best. I'll be honest in saying that almost every single one of the cast wardrobe was Brett and I's own closets, with a few random band tees from Zara thrown in there.
You've always had a bit of a design eye and kind of an interior design eye. I can't really take credit for our apartment. Still gonna do an apartment tour at some point. But she's loved doing that stuff. So it kind of was like a little bit second nature for you to kind of come in and design these scenes and these sets.
I'm talking 6 different wine glasses for each different, date occasion, from the dollar store, obviously, to basically ordering, Chinese takeout on a 1-hour whim and set decking a Chinese video game date, having our line producer Dylan run across the street to grab $2 street tacos for our, of course, makeshift taco date. Needing these small details to really sell each scene was so important. If you can spend $18 for tacos and it adds to the scene, then you do what you gotta do.
You could have the best camera, we could shot it on an Arri Mini LF or something like that, have all of the lighting in the world, but if what is in front of the camera, obviously the story and the actors, but what they're holding, what they're wearing doesn't look good, just ruins all of it.
And to be honest, I think both of us would have spent more if we could, just to really sell these date locations.
Meals for all of the cast and crew. I underestimated that a little bit.
I mean, as we got going on our first shoot day, I kind of decided food can be such an amazing motivator for people, especially when you have 20 members of, cast and crew that are doing this for free or at a crazy low rate. And it was important to me that we take care of these people.
Some days I think we were starting, between 6 and 7 a.m. And so, yeah, we were doing breakfast and lunch, we're doing coffee orders. Prices added up quick, but again, I can't enforce enough just how much good food can make a person, part of a crew, excited to actually continue working throughout the 14-hour shoot day.
People have gone super out of their way to come and help us out today. Pretty much everybody, but this man is his birthday.
Happy birthday!
Sam is here working on his birthday.
Birthday, dearest Sam.
Oh, fuck that, one and out.
Total cost, I believe, was $320 something.
Between $320 to $350 a day for about 15 people on set. We also did a table read, which was a night where we brought all the actors in. We got the director, Brett and Melissa here, and just did sort of a rough run through of the entire script. And so we decided to kind of cater that.
It's been interesting because a lot of these dating experiences and these scenes that we put together are sort of an amalgamation of your stories, but also other people's stories that have DM'd you because you put out a poll and said what's your worst dating experience? And
The goal of it is for it to feel super organic, very relatable. I want people to watch this and be like, shit, I know that person. I've been on a date with that guy. I've been on a date with that girl.
I'm Jacob.
Hi, Jacob.
I'm playing the role of Jordan.
What's up, y'all? I'm Geraldo Austin. I'm playing Spencer, the loud, gritty-ass motherfucking date.
Hi, my name's Talia Ray, and I play Sage, and I will be going on dates with all of you guys, and I'm thrilled! And I'm excited to get to know every guy here. Cool. It's feeling very much like The Bachelor.
Hey Sean, blessed to be here, especially on my birthday. Like anything associated with storytelling makes my heart warm. So when I found out we were doing this on my birthday, like my heart was delighted.
Hi guys, I'm RJ. I'm probably one of the only LA born and raised people in here, so I have no idea what y'all mean with the dating scene. Because it isn't normal to me. I don't know what y'all are talking about. I'm playing Lance, the narcissist, so that should be fun. Super thankful to be here and excited, guys.
Put your own spin on it, put your own sauce on it, have fun with it. I don't want anybody to feel like, you know, we're just here to have fun. You know what I mean? This ain't a job. Let's just all have fun with it. I know you guys are all super talented. And I just want to see that come through. So, like, I'm learning a lot from you. I know that much. Like, this is my first time doing it. So even if you see something and you're like, that may be a little, let me know.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? For real, please. I'm open to all constructive criticism. And again, this is all our project, so let's have fun with it.
Table reads, you don't get that for every shoot, not every narrative shoot, not every short film especially, and I think it was a great way for cast and crew to meet each other and really get comfortable reading lines together and kind of assess their energy.
That added to the budget, but again, all of the cast donated their time for this just to be a part of it. They were supportive of the story and wanted to work on this with us, and so the least we can do is give them some good food. When it came to finding the look for this film, you know, visually how things were going to feel, the principal photography, how we were approaching set design, wardrobe choices. Between the four of us, I'd say our basic references began with shows like Euphoria, but as the script began taking more shape and we started developing more of the characters, I would say things shifted more toward shows like Sex Education or Insecure. I think some people referenced that in the comments on the film, so glad it got you guys thinking in the same territory. Another couple of films like Dope and Waves were other inspirations. As you can see here in our shot inspiration board, we've just pulled stills from all sorts of different sources, mostly using Shot Deck, to kind of align with some of the scenes that we had laid out. So we start obviously in her apartment. So we've got a few kind of nice wide shots. You can tell a lot of this stuff leans pretty heavy into contrast and deep shadows, lots of interior practical lighting. I would definitely say as we began shooting, the look ended up being quite a bit brighter than I think we initially thought it would be, but that's also due to the fact that my apartment, you know, what we used as our main location, all the walls are white. That poses a pretty big challenge with regards to creating deep contrast and shadows like you see here in a lot of these shot references. I'm not mad at it. I do think we managed to pull off a pretty inviting and pretty contrasty, exciting looking bright home environment, but I think there's some aspects of the story that could have lended itself better to if we had been able to shoot things a bit darker. We had a pretty distinct color palette in mind as well. I think we liked a lot of these kind of dark emerald greens as well as kind of rich orange skin tones. So the unfortunate kind of pitfall to having white walls for our primary location is that set design and the things in the frame, colors in specific, become a lot more challenging to kind of inject into the shot. So we really have to just kind of play with wardrobe in order to make things kind of really pop. Here in our character breakdown board, where we have a whole breakdown of who she is, you know, what embodies her personality, all of these things that Brett and Melissa wrote out, characteristics, quirks and flaws, wardrobe inspiration, so you can kind of see some of the color palettes and style choices that we made. We've also got hair and makeup inspiration. So as I'm sure you can tell, Milanote is an incredibly helpful tool for filmmaking and the pre-production process. And I just realized I haven't mentioned it, but it is free to get started. So if you guys are interested in trying it out, be sure to click the link down in the description. Help support these videos. Thanks Milanote for sponsoring this video. My biggest goal with the cinematography in this was to create a world that felt visually intriguing. So it, you know, had a certain amount of character and stylization, you know, hence why we chose that kind of crazy vintage cinema lens set, but also still felt organic and believable. We have this kind of neutral, very minimal apartment. So we have to make sure that we're choosing shot angles and lighting setups that feel real in this story. I recall seeing some comments from people saying they felt like it was just a lot of close-ups, not a lot of like compositional stuff or like environmental shots. It may be a little hard to think about this, but when you're shooting a scene, a dialogue scene for instance, the close-up shots, those usually take the least amount of time. It's the wide shots. Like when you pull the camera back and start to see more of the environment, you now have to think about lighting the entire space. You have to think about everything that's being shown. As we had talked about relative to locations, for some, we needed to basically make the same location look like multiple individual dates. It became really hard to shoot those wider shots without essentially revealing that we are doing multiple in one. It can take a lot of time and resources to get those really big, wide, establishing shots that really ground you in the story. If it were my choice and we had more time, more budget, definitely would have accounted for getting more of those shots. When it comes to the camera, you guys already know, we shot this on the ZVE1, a pocketable creator full frame camera. I mean, this is the camera I'm using right now. It's what I've been using for a lot of my YouTube videos. We of course paired that with some amazing cinema lenses, the Canon rangefinders. These are an incredibly rare set of vintage lenses that just have this crazy, beautiful look. In the camera, we were shooting in XAVCS 4K, 422 10-bit, not XAVCS-I. I've done a lot of tests and have personally found almost an indistinguishable difference. So I prefer to save the hard drive space and just shoot in S. For our filtration in the matte box, for diffusion, we were using a Tiffin Black Satin 1/8, kind of one of my favorite diffusion filters nowadays. For ND, we were using the Element Full Spectrum ND filters. These are amazing. I'm really impressed with this series. If we dive into our storyboard here, you know, where we have images as well as kind of a breakdown of the shots, didn't get very far. We didn't really complete the storyboard. We kind of started on it and realized that it was gonna be a little bit too much work to really get caught up on this in the midst of everything else we had going on. So we kind of pivoted away from the storyboard and really just began developing the shot list itself. Definitely not sure that this was the best way to lay this out, but we have day 1, day 2, day 3, as well as our voiceover day, and then also the pickup days that we had to add. Up at the top, we just have what scenes are gonna be shot in that day. We have a rough schedule with kind of some times. This didn't go to plan really at all. And then a shot list, which really wasn't super specific. This was really kind of like our Achilles heel throughout this project. Is I really don't think we had enough time put into this. We had so many other things that we were trying to figure out, like logistics and locations and getting all of our cast and crew put together, that I kind of didn't really have the full energy and bandwidth. You'll see that there's quite a few boxes that are unchecked, stuff that we had to scrap, you know, just because we ran out of time. My biggest takeaway from this entire short film, if I'm working on a shot list for a big narrative piece, they've got to be thorough. They've got to be super fleshed out. I need to know it inside and out. Unfortunately, just with everybody's hectic schedules and so many people kind of doing this on a whim for free, it's like there was only so much pre-pro effort and communication we could really put into this in order to make it happen. So yeah, that was a little bit of our sticking point. So diving into a bit on the post-production side of things, one really big comment from a lot of you guys was the color, which I'm super grateful for. We put a lot of time into the look and the cinematography. So color, of course, was something I really wanted to carefully refine and invest into. So in order to do that, I figured why not bring on a colorist. So Jake, maybe take a moment to introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
My name is Jake Peerley. I'm a professional colorist working on anything from commercials to short films such as this one. Kind of been a lifelong passion, and one thing has continued to evolve into the next. And now, I guess 10 years in, here we are, and I'm coloring films for good friends of mine all across the world. It's an interesting niche that I found myself in. I've always been really invested and in love with the YouTube space. I think there's probably a lot of hate in YouTube filmmaking, but it's kind of where my heart is, and it's a fun place to be.
Take us through a little bit of kind of this process.
Well, luckily you were working in Resolve, so the conform process was pretty simple. We didn't have to do an XML or an EDL. The only thing we had to do was just relocate the footage, because we shipped a drive over my way. From there, I was able to just kind of load everything in, open up the project, watch through it a few times, get a feel for the story, and then just kind of go in and start doing what I do to prep a film, which is set up our color space transforms and grouping everything by scenes and by looks that I wanted to work with. We'll take one of these scenes, for example. Let's dig in. Yeah, this first date in the pre-clip, we have our first node converting Sony S-Gamut 3 Cine S-Log3 into DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. We work in that through our clip node tree where we're doing our corrections. And then in the group post clip is where we have just 3 simple nodes, which is applying our look. And then down at the timeline node tree, we've got our sharpening, contrast, popo effects, some grain, and then converting DaVinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709. But yeah, every look is kind of just created in the group post clip. Every scene kind of has its own little look modifiers to give that scene its own unique feel. But there are some characteristics that are, of course, consistent across all the scenes, which helps bring together the uniformity and the consistency of the whole film.
I started sharing references. Typically a DP or sometimes a director will have general kind of color notes that they want for the film. You know, obviously we shot this on the Sony ZV-E1, so S-Log3, 10-bit, 422, it's a great place for you to work with, plenty of flexibility.
And those references we looked at from Sex Ed, a lot of that is very overcast and a little bit more moody, and this film is a little more relaxed and upbeat, more of a rom-com vibe, but with a modern taste, and still wanting to incorporate some of the classic film stocks that we kind of took hints from Euphoria. So looking at that, I was trying to, as a colorist, extract what it was you liked about those references and cherry pick those little pieces and implement them into this film. Which pieces of the references did you want? Which ones would be mixed together to make our own? And which ones would we, of course, omit that didn't make sense for the story?
Jake, being a busy person, went in and set kind of the primary looks for all of the scenes and kind of used those as a starting place. And because of hectic schedules and timing overall with trying to get this film out as quickly as possible, fortunately, because we edited this film in Resolve, was able to just take the project file back from him and go through and make the final changes to kind of refine and correct some scenes a little bit further to my liking as the DP.
Yeah, it's definitely unorthodox, but not all DPs are prepped or have the time necessarily to kind of take advantage of that workflow. But both of us kind of share this role of 50% of our time, or whatever ratio of our time is spent doing the industry job, whether it's DP, color, directing, and then another portion is devoted to making this whole thing work, which is the social media content train. Part of that, you're building a brand and creating these educational videos and tutorials, and because of that workflow, we mix things up a little bit.
There's kind of so much beauty in this new kind of ununiform process that's emerging with a lot of filmmakers and content creators. I couldn't be more happy with how it all looks.
Yeah, I think most people are probably a little bit shocked to hear what it was actually shot on. But it's so much about the lens that you put in front of the sensor, the lighting that obviously brings your whole set to life.
Jake, thank you again, man, for being a part of this.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
If you're watching this and you haven't seen the short film, maybe go watch the short film, but hopefully this answers some of your guys' questions. Hopefully you learned something. We'll see you in the next one.